다음으로 영국의 커팅 교육 과정에 대해서 닐 맥린사의 닐 맥린 대표님께서 발표해 주시겠습니다. 닐 맥린 대표님께서는 영국의 커팅 교육 과정 개발에 직접 참여하셨으며 오늘은 영국의 새로운 커팅 교육 과정의 배경과 현장 적용 현안 등에 대해서 구체적인 사례를 발표해 주시겠습니다. 닐 맥린 교수님을 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
Thank you. Firstly, it's a privilege to be here. It's fantastic to be invited. The Korean education system is one of the highest performing education systems in the world. So let's hope that this is part of a great dialogue between our two countries. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that I'm also privileged to be following two presentations that have set the scene so well. And I'm going to revisit some of those ideas because I believe this is important. If I can say a little bit about me. When dinosaurs walked the earth, I used to teach in a classroom. I taught maths and science, and then became involved in computer science. I then worked for a school district, and then I worked for government agencies, and I wrote the UK's first national curriculum for IT in 1997. So I've been around this in quite a while. And I just want to share some of our experiences with you and how we've got to where we've got to. But before we start, I want to say why I care about this technology, why I think it's important, why I think it's part of the rights of young people to learn about it, because it is special. And the first thing I want to say about this technology that makes it special, which is a little bit of a philosophical point, for most of human history, there was a connection between craft, the maker, and the product. When I visited the palace the day before yesterday, I could see the work of the people in the creation of the beautiful objects. I can see the artist in the brush mark in the product. Now, the creator creates the software and the software creates the product. The change of the relationship between people and their products. This is a new thing. This is a new thing. Another thing, all technology extends our reach. From the time the very first person picked up a stone and threw it 3 million years ago, whenever that was, technology means we can reach further. We can now reach to Pluto because of this technology. Yeah? It is incredibly important. Third thing about this technology, there are two things that make us special on the planet. Two things that characterize us as human beings. One is language. Because of language we can communicate. We can learn from others. And the other is technology, the ability to make things, to change our environment. What digital technology is connects the two. Through software, we make things using language. They bring together two of the most powerful things that make us human beings. This is important. Steve Jobs, who was quoted earlier on, describes technology as the amplifier of our intellect. Now, amplifiers just make things bigger. If you do bad things, you can do bigger bad things. If you do good things, you can do bigger good things. Technology as an amplifier of our intellect. This makes it important. Of course it's important because it's important to economic growth. Of course it's important to productivity. Of course it's important to the competitiveness in the world. But it's also important in a human sense because it's about where we are as human beings. If we give some examples of how it's changing the nature of things. Let me take an example from sport, and forgive me if this is already familiar stuff.
Sport. Let's choose a sport I know very little about. Football. Germany won the World Cup. They use big data to do it through a system that can process 7 million data points in real time and give feedback to the coach. Fashion. Promotional strategies are now shaped by big data. There's the software there collecting 53 billion data points in a typical year. It's changing the world. The sports thing I find fascinating. Every football team in the Bundesliga now has a data scientist. And the software's process, it records, they have sensors on the backs, if you don't know, there's sensors around there, and in a 10-minute training session, it creates the 7 million data points. The software gives feedback to the coach in real time. This is changing the nature of how people prepare for sport. And of course, it matters to young people. When I talk to teachers in England, I say, if you don't control technology, it will control you. And the major concern that a lot of parents that I talk to when I talk to parents is about how technology is controlling their young people rather than their young people controlling them. So children have a right to be in control of this technology, to understand how it works, to make sense of the world they live in, so they can make their contribution, but they can get it. To be really, really personal about this, that is my son. It's an old picture of my son. My son was born in the year 2000. I'm an old parent. The year 2000 was the last year of the 20th century. His great-grandmother, my grandmother, lived to be 101 years old. If my son inherits some of her genetic material, with a bit of luck, and if the scientists sort out why men tend to die before women, soon, please, my son may have been born in the last year of the 20th century, live all the way through the 21st century, and finally die in the 22nd century. The secondary teacher teaching my son is touching the 22nd century. This is important, isn't it? This is important. What we had, by the way, that's an English letterbox. It's a postbox for putting letters in. What we had was a model of education, which was to take the young person and to fill them up with knowledge. Fill them up with knowledge, more and more knowledge. The young person as a consumer of knowledge, a consumer of technology. The big step was to say the future is about our learners becoming producers, creators of technology, creators with technology, creators of learning. And that computational thinking is a powerful tool for helping them grow, because learning grows in the learner. You can't put it through a slot into their head. So that's the background to the curriculum. We need to teach them the principles and concepts, how technology works, and how to become producers and creators themselves. Yes, because it's important to the economy, but yes, because it's important to them. How can you grow up in a world if you don't understand how it works? So what does that mean for the curriculum? If that's the background, if you believe what I said, if it makes sense, if you feel that your young people are in similar positions to the young people in the UK, what does that mean for the curriculum? I want to say a little bit about what I mean by the curriculum. When I wrote parts of the UK national curriculum a long, long time ago, my boss at the time said, teachers teach what their knowledge, understanding, and belief helps them teach. They don't teach what I write on my pieces of paper. It's teachers that breathe life into a curriculum. And what the curriculum is everything that the child experiences in the discipline. Yes, there's a national curriculum, but then the teacher breathes life into it, and then the learner engages with it. So what we've learnt is, yes, you can talk about the national curriculum, but you need to talk about how the teacher breathes life into that curriculum. Otherwise, it will not be the effective experience for the young person. And this is a model. So, what we've got in the UK the English National Curriculum for Computing, is it starts to talk about the things that all young people should know. And yes, we've taken the view that it should start at 5. That you can introduce young people to these ideas, much as was said in the excellent opening presentation, the same as learning a language. And there is subject content. Programming languages, algorithms, data structures, computer architecture, communication and coordination computer systems, there's content. But there's also the idea, it isn't just what you know, it's what you can do with what you know that's at the heart of the curriculum. So it also talks about computational thinking, abstraction, the things that were talked about in the opening presentation. What you know and what you can do with what you know. And it has some aims for the curriculum. And this hasn't been translated, so I'll just pick out the key words. It talks about fundamental principles and concepts, but it also talks very much about analysing problems in computational terms. That's a tool for life. Being able to approach a problem and work out, how do I break that problem down? Have I seen a problem like this before? How can I model this? And solve those problems. And the word I've put down here, which is particularly important, is creative, because the future is going to belong to the young people who can solve these problems using technology creatively. So, if that's the national curriculum, and what I said was what breathes life into the curriculum is how teachers approach the curriculum in school, what does that tell us about curriculum design, curriculum resources, and teaching and learning strategies? The things that breathe life into the curriculum. Now, my colleagues, Miles is going to talk about curriculum resources, and Sue and Yvonne are going to talk about teaching and learning strategies, how we support teachers. So I'm going to say a little bit about curriculum design as it happens in the classroom. And I'm going to use a model that was developed actually back in the 1980s around technology education in general by Professor Paul Black of King's. To miss that out. And he talked about an effective person has a set of competencies. Technical knowledge and understanding, computational thinking, problem-solving skills, but they also need to communicate and work with others in applying those skills. One of the interesting things is all the technology companies I talk about the importance of teamwork. Teams solve problems now. There are very few problems that are so small that one person working by themselves can solve them. Organisational skills, project management skills. So these are all the things that an effective person has in their head. And the curriculum needs to address those. But what an effective person can do is use these to solve authentic problems. Yeah? By authentic, I mean real world, in the broadest sense of real world, because if you're a 7-year-old, a cartoon is real to you. Authentic tasks. And if you have this without this, that's great for going on quiz shows, because you know things, but you can't necessarily do anything with what you know. And of course, this, without this, in England we talk about an argument in a bar as a brilliant process with no knowledge and understanding. Yeah? Two together. And the curriculum model says by involving young people in authentic problem-solving tasks, this reinforces the things that we've taught them and consolidates them, but it also develops the thing that will carry them through their life, capability, which is the ability to use these things to solve problems. So what does an effective curriculum look like? Yes, it identifies these. Yes, it has structured teaching of all of these. But at the same time, it also engages young people in authentic problem-solving tasks. And what you'll see in an effective curriculum is a balance between these things, the teaching of the fundamental principles, and real authentic tasks. And some of the work I was involved in was getting employers to come up with authentic tasks, real challenges for young people, so they could use these to solve this problem. It's a powerful curriculum model, and our evidence is it works. What have we learnt through all of this? Because one of the great things about language is language allows others to learn from others' mistakes. I can share the things we've learnt, some of the mistakes we've made, some things we've got right. First thing we've learnt is if we want to get teachers excited about this, rather than doing it simply because it is a requirement, we need vision and messages. Teachers need to understand how computing relates to what they care about. Young people. Yes, the economy is incredibly important. Yes, a whole set of other things are incredibly important. But if we genuinely want to engage teachers, we must connect computing and computational thinking to the ideas about young people's intellectual development. There's a phrase here, digital makers, digital creators. We've learned it's not just about what you put in, it's about giving young people opportunities to make with the technology, to produce, to create new software. And we've learned it's important to communicate with everybody, school leaders. If a school leader isn't supportive, how can a teacher make change happen in it? We've learnt that computational thinking is the key idea. Coding is a means, not an end. I talked about my son, who will be working in the year 2060. I've no idea what programming languages will be around in the year 2060. But I do know computational thinking will be around, because it's a way of solving problems. We've learned that young people learn best in authentic contexts, and that we need to make sure that we have progression, that tasks get harder. We've learned that teachers' CPD is important, and that teachers need curriculum support, not just technical support. Yes, it's great for teachers to learn Python, to learn things like that, but that isn't the same as learning how to teach them. And we've learned how important it is to connect teachers together through events such as this, but also online, to connect teachers locally and nationally, because we're inventing something new here. And the people who will actually do the real research and development on this will be teachers in classrooms developing those new approaches. Thank you very much, and thank you again for the invitation.
네, 영국의 컴퓨팅 교육과정에 대해 발표해 주신 닐 맥린 대표님께 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 한국과 영국의 교육과정에 대해서 들으셔서 아시겠지만 양국이 모두 지금 컴퓨팅 사고력, 컴퓨테이셔널 싱킹을 굉장히 강조하고 있는 것을 알 수 있었습니다. 지금까지 한국과 영국의 교육과정에 대한 발표를 들으셨는데요. 두 개의 발표를 들으시고 질문이 있으신 분들은 손을 들어주시면 저희가 마이크를 가져다 드리도록 하겠습니다. 혹시 질문 있으신 분 계신가요? 아, 네.
대구 목현중학교에서 장희탁입니다. 아까 학생들 간의 협력에 대한 얘기들을 아까 잠깐 해주셨습니다. 네. 닐 교수님이시나 죄송합니다. 자, 닐 대표님. 학생들 간의 협력도 중요하다고 생각하지만 교과 간의 협력에 대한 얘기들이 조금 더 교과들 간의 협력에 대한 얘기들은 어떻게 해보게 진행되고 있는지 네. 학생들 간의 협력이나 혹은 있겠지만 교과들 간의 협력에 대한 내용들도 혹시 영국에서 이루어지고 있는 부분이 있는지 궁금하기도 했고요. 그리고 한 가지만 아까도 텍스트 기반 랭귀지에 대해서 아까 교수님께서 이영준 교수님께서 텍스트 기반 랭귀지에 대한 얘기를 고등학교 때 한다고 말씀하셨는데 그런 영역들이 정확하게 나눠지는 시기를 꼭 고등학교 때라고 해주신 이유가 있는지 조금 더 알고 싶어서 질문하게 됐습니다.
네, 먼저 닐 맥린 대표님께 타격과 융합에 대해서 답변을 듣고 그 다음에 이영준 교수님께 답변 듣도록 하겠습니다.
Firstly, thank you for that. I think it's an excellent question and a very, very challenging one. When I started teaching in 1978, every teacher was in their own classroom and teachers didn't collaborate. We didn't collaborate at all. I taught maths. I think the online world has changed an awful lot of that. Now, I've no idea how this works out in Korea, but we have got greater collaboration through technology. So we've got things like one of the places I used to work was Times Educational Supplement, and we put an online place where teachers could collaborate and share. And every Sunday afternoon, 80,000 teachers go and share resources and download resources and things like that. The thing we've learned about collaboration has to be about real things. That's the thing. So I don't think we should force collaboration unnecessarily. But the reason I said that the real R&D, the research and development about this, is going to happen in classrooms was to encourage collaboration. Because if we've got a network of teachers collaborating, thinking we are creating the new classroom practice for this, that will drive collaboration in a different sort of way. Which is not to say it's not a challenge. We're going to talk about, we have hubs that connect teachers together so they can meet face to face to support that. And then the other thing that we've brought into the equation is using some of our universities to support collaboration with teachers. Yeah? So you have to build systems between it. Another thing we've learned is whilst online is very, very good, teachers like face-to-face. They like to see the teachers that they're actually collaborating with. They like to get to know them. It's early days, but we have thousands of teachers collaborating, so it seems to work. One thing I would say is I said about the importance of head teachers. The person who can shape the culture in a school, whether it is a collaborative culture, I believe is the head teacher. And I think one of the most important things that head teachers can do is create a culture in their schools where teachers share their practice with other teachers. I think without that we'll all stay in our classrooms. So that was the first thing. The second thing you asked about was text-based language and block-based languages and things like that. What we do in the UK is for younger children, they tend to work with block-based languages. Visual representations. You'll be familiar with Scratch and things like that. But we have made it a requirement in secondary that they must do 2 languages. We haven't specified what they are, but we have said, but one must be text-based. Because when they leave the world of school, they will meet text-based languages. You know, so the idea is introduce through the block base, transition to the block and text, and then when they're older they'll be working in a text-based question. I don't feel I've done proper justice to your question, but I hope that helps a little bit.
네, 그 연관해서 제 질문을 한 가지 드리고 싶은데 그러면 지금 콜라보레이션을 굉장히 중요하다고 말씀을 해주셨는데요. 영국의 컴퓨팅 교육 과정을 학교에서 적용할 때 반드시 컴퓨팅 교사가 가르치는지 아까 그 교사가 구성하는 교육 과정에 대해서도 중요하다고 말씀을 해주셨는데 그 내용이 좀 궁금합니다. 아까 이제 타교과에 대해서도 말씀을 해주셔서.
Right. Yeah, okay. So in primary schools, up to age 11, the class teacher teaches everything. Yeah? Same in Korea. With some specialists, some perhaps music or some sports, a specialist might come in, but the class teacher teaches everything. In secondary school, historically, computing is new, so most computing teachers used to be a teacher of something else before they became a computing teacher. So many computing teachers will teach two subjects. There might be maths and computing, or science and computing, or business and computing, or something like that. Actually, in a funny sort of way, that helps for the collaboration, because they already straddle two disciplines. The other thing is, that's probably it.
네, 감사합니다. 그 이영준 교수님께서도 아까 한국의 교육과정에 대해서 선생님 질문해 주셨는데요. 텍스트 기반 언어를 이제 고등학교에서 가르쳐야 되는 이유에 대해서 이제 간략하게 말씀을 해주시면 감사하겠습니다.
이게 마이크 되나요? 예, 제가 질문을 정확히 이해를 못했는데 정확히 다시 한번 말씀해 주시겠습니까?
아까 말씀하셨던 그 강연 중에서 중등학교까지는 블록 기반 랭귀지를 말씀하셨고요. 고등학교 올라와서는 텍스트 기반 랭귀지가 시작한다 이런 얘기를 말씀해 주셨습니다. 근데 그 시점이 되는 지금 고등학교가 되어야 되는 그 어떤
그렇게 말씀드린 건 아니고요. 중학교는 텍스트 기반 언어를 쓰라는 것을 명시하지 않았다고 했습니다. 그래서 교재에 따라서 블록 기반 할 수도 있고 텍스트 기반 할 수도 있습니다. 근데 고등학교를 가면은 고등학교에서는 텍스트 기반 언어를 꼭 해야 된다고 명시되어 있다고 말씀드린 거고요. 고등학교 가서만 텍스트 기반 언어를 시작하라는 건 아니었습니다.
네, 답변 감사드립니다. 한 분만 더 질문 받겠습니다. 그게
닐 교수님 강의 잘 들었고요. 정말 좋은 말씀해 주셔서 감사합니다. 저는 중학교에서 정보를 가르치고 있는 현직 교사인데요. 지금 현재 개정되는 저희 우리나라에서 이제 개정되는 교육 과정이 실제 현장으로 이제 실제 내려갈 경우에는 또 위쪽에서는 이제 CT를 굉장히 중요하게 생각해서 교육 과정 만들긴 하는데 현장에 가서는 아마 프로그래밍 위주로 아마 갈 것 같아요. 그 현장 선생님들이. 그런데 영국에서는 실제 현장에 계신 선생님들이 그 CT를 기반으로 실질적인 문제를 해결해 나가는 건지 아니면 실제 영국도 실제 맨 밑바닥에 있는 현장 선생님들이 수업을 진행하실 때 프로그래밍이 아니라 프로그래밍 쪽으로 좀 중심으로 그 정보 교과를 가르치는지 아니면은 CT를 적용해서 실질적인 문제를 임의의 문제를 해결해 나가는 전체적인 문제 해결 과정으로 하는지가 좀 궁금합니다.
That's another fantastic question. What we have in the UK is a huge range of practice, So you will see schools for the age group you're talking about, where the teachers are frightened. This is new, and they tend to control it, and they just teach bits of programming. That's absolutely the case, and we shouldn't be surprised by that. They need to build their confidence. But you will also see in about a third of schools them actively adopting this kind of problem-solving approach, setting real problems. And the reason I think that's taken off is because when we introduced IT in 1997, 94, through to 97, when ICT came in, we tried to stress throughout the problem-solving idea about it. So this is not news to them, if you know what I mean. Now, some teachers have probably gone backwards, because when things are new, people often do go backwards because of their lack of confidence or whatever kind of thing. But pulling a figure out the air, I think we've got about a third of schools who are adopting a genuine problem-solving approach to this. Or at least that's what a survey by, I don't know whether it was Nestle or the BBC would suggest. But I'm not pretending here. At the same time, there are some schools who are really, really struggling, and they're just teaching very basic programming, and that's where they are.
네, 감사합니다.